Well, so we're here with part two of the love languages kind of series that we're going to be talking about today. And this one is like number two on the list. And, well, not the list, well, it's the second in the order, but there's no real ordering to it really of importance. Just depends on what, your partner's love language is. But it's quality time. And I think I want to start this off with kind of a quote or like a movie quote from a really great movie called, I don't know if you've heard of it, but The Godfather. And in that movie, one of the main characters, Don Corleone, says, oh God, I can't even remember the scene or whatever. But he says something along the lines of, a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be considered a man. And I think that kind of touches on what we are going to kind of, go into more detail throughout this video. And it can be related, you can relate that to more than just, about the man scenario or the male scenario. You can do it about the woman, a woman who doesn't spend time with her family isn't truly a woman or a wife or whatever. But I feel like that's probably less likely, like that's in reality, like probably happens a lot less than the male scenario where the man is just off working all the time and never spends time with the family and so becomes disconnected. And if you watch the Godfather series, you can kind of see that happen with the son Michael. And let's kind of move that into what we're kind of going to be focusing on how we can use quality time if our partner or spouse primary love language is quality time. So one thing that it kind of requires is active listening. And active listening is something that is a practice that needs to be kind of cultivated, and it's something you should probably be doing actually with everyone. But obviously, considering how your spouse is one of the most important people in your life, they're definitely someone you should be doing this with. Otherwise, problems can ensue. And I think you should probably be doing it regardless of whether your partner's primary love language is quality time, because it's just a good skill to have. So what it means by active listening is, it's genuinely actually not participating, but listening to what they have to say. And I know that doesn't may not make sense, because you'd be like, well, I did hear them, but see, that's the key thing. You heard them, but did you listen to them? Because listening is more than just hearing something. It's about it's coming from the place of empathy and trying to understand where that person is coming from. Because I can't remember, God, there's a song where it says do you listen as well as you can hear? So you might hear someone say something, but you might not listen to what they have to say. You might not take it with much, concentration, and that just makes the person feel, unappreciated and obviously unloved. So, not a good time, especially if it's your spouse. So ways to kind of work on active listening is obviously just the basics, is focusing on obviously looking at them, giving them eye contact, not interjecting. So let someone finish what they have to say and give a small pause and wait a small silence before thinking about getting your own words and thoughts out there, because you might inadvertently cut someone off if they're just pausing mid-sentence or in between sentences, and then you just kind of cut in, and then they get, oh, okay, and then so they let you talk, but they don't actually get what they want out in full. So then they feel kind of silenced in a way. So it's kind of things like that, actively listening in the sense that you give them eye contact, you give them the space to talk, and then you actually process what they're saying. Because what might happen is someone says something to you, and then you just not actually listening to them. You just, yeah, whatever. And then you just come out with a stock standard off-the-shelf mental response, and it doesn't actually pertain to the context or really what they were trying to get to, and you would have understood what they were trying to get to if you were actually actively listening, but because you weren't, you just kind of give them a generic kind of response that kind of makes them feel, oh, yeah, thanks, great, whatever. You clearly don't care or spend the time to actually understand what's going on with me right now. See you later.
Do you still have that Aldi catalog?
In the middle of something right now.
Oh, sorry.
Unbelievable. But whatever. Well, let's just keep going. So I think that's one kind of core part, is that active communication. Active listening. But the next part is kind of quality conversation. And this is something I feel that probably guys struggle with a lot because, and I've seen it in my own kind of life, like when I've spoken with friends and I've asked, oh, how's your day going? Or how was your day? Or what, something along those lines. The response I usually get is, I don't know, it was all right, which is a 6-word response. And to a guy, that sounds perfect. It's just like, wow, I answered the question in the most efficient number of words possible. Done. Like, let's move on. Like, next agenda item. Like, I've accomplished the task that was set before me, which was solving the problem of how my day was. I've done it. Where if someone's primary love language is quality time, that's not going to be enough of an answer. Like, it's kind of going to seem like you're trying to palm them off and not really wanting to address what happened. And that's obviously not good, because the person who has their primary love language as quality time probably wants to share more with you, wants to go into more detail about what it happened in your life. And then once that's happened, they can then feel like they're in a position to then talk about what happened in their day, which is something they want to get to eventually, but they kind of need the space or the open forum of both you talking, going into detail, and giving them the space to then go into detail themselves. Because it feels weird, unless you're a complete narcissist who, the person just says 6 words, then you go on like a huge giant 2-hour story or something. Well, maybe not 2 hours, but yeah, let's just say 2 hours, screw it. It's gonna, they'll be fine with that. But most people tend to mirror and match their language and their speaking duration to what the person they're speaking to kind of does as well. So if it's short, sharp responses, they tend to give short, sharp responses. But if there's more, depth to it, then they'll feel that in the space that they can provide more depth themselves. Not everyone's like that, but some people do get a little bit more, oh, well, they didn't say much, so I'm not going to say much either, just because they don't want to feel like they're hogging up all the space. So yeah, I think that's something, if you're a guy and your partner, it's called like primary love language is quality time, I think that's something you're going to need to work on, is kind of better understanding how to kind of draw out your conversation, and actually kind of, it's going to require you to almost like have to analyze what happened in your day, and then link those events of what happened in your day to then feelings that and then link them kind of scenarios. So, oh, my boss yelled at me because the project is behind schedule, right? So that's the event. And then how did that make you feel? That made me feel, devalued, or that made me feel, dejected or something. Or you link it. Or it could be the opposite, where, on the drive into work today, it was nothing but green lights. That made me feel good. It felt like everything was going my way. That's a way you can link the event to the feeling. Nice. And so that builds your answer beyond, I don't know, it was all right. It has more depth to it, so you can kind of spend that quality time. And the funniest thing is the quality time doesn't have to feel like it needs to take hours or days or a holiday like length kind of time. It might only be like 15, 20 minutes of just good conversation, and that might be enough to really kind of satiate and, like I said, fill that love tank of the person who has primary love language as quality time. And I think an exercise you can do, or a way you can kind of look at it to kind of find ways to deal with the issue of not having time for quality time. Yeah, the time for quality time, goddamn. Lyrical genius right here. But is write down what you think are distractions that take you away from being able to spend quality time. And you might come up with a list that seems like, oh, all of these things are just normal and reasonable things that I have to do in a day. And that might be true, but the question is, does it need to take up so much time? Do those things need to take up so much time that you don't have the ability to, cater to your partner's love language of quality time? Does it really need to take some of those things, like maybe some of them are vital that need to get done and are mission critical, so they have to get done. But, you can reschedule things. You are a human being who has competing, interests and motives and, demands on them. And we juggle it all the time. It's I'm sure if you want to prioritize your relationship, which I don't know, probably seems like a good thing, you'll probably find a way. You're smart, you'll do it. You'll find a way to make it happen. And maybe some of those things on that list that you think are so vital and so necessary, in reality, when you look at through that kind of step back lens, you might kind of go, actually, you know what, maybe those aren't as important. Maybe those can be optional extras that if I get around to them would be good, but, but catering and caring for my relationship and my partner is more important. It takes precedent over that. And yeah, I think that's another good way. And I think a classic example is, especially in the male to female dynamic, where the man is working really long hours. Where a guy gets frustrated is he comes home and then the wife or partner then goes on and says, you're always working, we never get to spend time together, we never talk or anything. And, the guy feels unappreciated because he's like, well, I'm working my ass off to get, put food on the table and provide for us. And you don't seem to care. You're not acknowledging that. But the thing, and they feel like it's an attack on them and their job, when the reality is it's not the job that the partner hates. It's the fact that they're getting very little love from their partner. They would be they're not, someone who has quality time as their love language is not, oblivious to the fact that people need to work and need to make money to put, afford food and, school fees and all sorts of shit like that. But it's just they still need that need of love, so they still need that flow in from their partner. And if the partner is solely prioritizing the financial stability of the family unit, then, the love side is going to die. The love tank's going to go down, and then it doesn't matter. You might get those, promotion that guy was gunning for, and, you now might be making twice as much money, but you're now in a loveless marriage or relationship that is going nowhere, and who knows, maybe you'll get divorced or you'll break up, and then you have all the money, well, you have all the great job and the great money now, but you have no one to spend it with, so that sucks. So yeah, definitely think about that. And quality time can be other things like, going on trips and stuff like that. Try and think about things, obviously, that both of you and your partner can enjoy. If you're going to go down the trip route or the activity route where, you go on a hike, or maybe you both like baseball or some sort of sport. So you go out on a Saturday and you go to a, sporting game or some shit like that. So yeah, try and find things that potentially both of you can enjoy. And if your partner is someone who, primary love language is quality time, maybe think about doing something that's a little bit different. Maybe something that might be uncomfortable for you, but they really enjoy, because they will acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you were doing something that you particularly might not be interested in or really thrilled about, but they are. And that kind of time together doing that thing, they'll love it even more, because they'll know that you made the effort to spend the time with them. It wasn't about doing the thing. It was about spending the time with your partner. And to them, that's what really matters. And I think that kind of mainly encapsulates the ideas and thoughts I wanted to cover off in this one. So stay tuned for the next 3 kind of discussions of the love languages to come. And, get excited, because we've got a lot to cover.